Yo, what up, what up, what up, and welcome back to Pnoid News. Man, listen, like, yo, we got a good one for y'all today. You know what I'm saying? Legitimately, like, yo, what if Altus done dropped a new motherfucking video and shit? And I'll be real with you, you know what I mean? I'm a fan of his work, and the reason why I am is because, let's be real here, you know what I'm saying? He reads the same material that I do. But I decided, I was like, yo, look, let me go get my nigga Doku. You know what I mean? Actually, I saw him running around on Discord. I was like, yo, let me go get Doku. You know what I mean? And fucking I grabbed him. He's like, yeah, man, yo, let's get it done. So, you know what I mean? Here we are. You know what I mean? Doku, say what up to the people.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Thanks for bailing me out from that garbage ass conversation I was having on Discord. I appreciate that.
Yo, I got you. I got you. It's not an issue, my brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, whenever I got something to do, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. I'm gonna come scoop you because, like, yo, you probably one of the better motherfuckers out here in this neck of the woods. You know what I'm saying? Right. So, in the meantime, you know what I mean? Like, yo, what I'm gonna do is I'm a motherfucker. And we're going to kind of like react to this video, break some shit down, have a conversation about things. You know what I mean? I feel like it's going to go positively. You know, so let's, in the meantime, let's get to it, man. Let's rock. All right.
This channel's got a bit of a reputation for being doomer, which means I'm always foreseeing doom and terror in the future. Honestly, that's entirely fair when I put out videos like this. However, it's not an entirely accurate view of what I think the future is going to be like. Yes, I think some bad stuff's going to go down pretty soon since the world system's fundamentally broken, but I think everyone's going to end the 21st century significantly better off than how they started. I think advances and improvements will be so great that in your old age, you'll look back upon your youth and wonder how you got by. Every century has been dominated by a couple major trends that you could predict most of the important events that occurred in that century by following a logic train starting from that trajectory. This is a video that exists to tease out what I think the four dominant trends be. We'll make out a longer term, more optimistic view of the world in 2100 than I normally would have. We live in a world where technology is changing the workforce a tremendous amount, and so to stay on top of things is probably the best to learn skills that might end up being your career.
Yeah, I'll be real. You just dropped this, so I'm gonna let the ad play. You know?
Skillshare is an online learning community for creative people where millions
yeah, I'm
come
gonna let the ad
together
rock. You know what I'm saying? Because it's his ad. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to.
Skillshare offers thousands of
cut out
inspiring
his
classes
shit.
and stuff like graphic design.
Because I'm a big fan of what he does. Like,
creative writing, animation, marketing, and web development. I really found their course by Anthony Pizza about 5 exercises to unlock creative identity really fascinating.
Yeah, it's not like we're like, you know, we're like banging on him. Like, I'm a big fan of what he does. You know what I'm saying?
It talks about how building a style is really a process of world building and constructing.
Like me and his channel isn't too dissimilar
audience
as far as shit's concerned.
Skillshare provides classes that include a
but I think like you'll get into it because like you know you're a geopolitics type of guy, you know.
Skillshare is designed to help you learn. There are no ads.
I don't want to
and
be,
always
but
launching new premium
it's
classes
kind of a
so you can
necessity.
explore something new and focus on building skills that will last.
What do you mean you don't want to be?
No matter who you are, you can benefit by visiting Skillshare and finding something
I like
that interests
things
you.
easy.
Right now, Skillshare is offering the first
don't like
1,000 of
things to be
my
overly
subscribers to click the link in the
and
description below
geopolitics
a
overly
1-month
complicates
free
things.
trial.
Download
Skillshare so you can start exploring your
I don't
creativity
think it is.
now.
I don't think it is. So let's look, we're finally gonna get to the goddamn video. Jesus Christ, took forever.
I know these trends actually exist, since we've seen their predictive ability looking backwards across history. Most predictions of the future go horribly wrong. This is since people take a trend that's occurred over the last generation, or often most of their lives, without understanding what's causing it, and just have it go for another generation just harder and faster. The truth is that almost never happens. For example, you got predictions of cannibalism and complete global overpopulation coming from the 1970s, since that generation beforehand had seen the fastest population growth ever up to that point in history. These predictions failed by missing two things, the first of which was the Green Revolution, which turned out to be one of the most important events in history. The world's population more than doubled from 1970 to the present, but everyone turned out to be better fed, and global forest lands actually expanded by more than 15% since the 1990s. This was since agricultural productivity went up by a massive margin. The second thing was that wealthier countries have less kids, and because of that, as the world got wealthier, there were less kids total, so the population problem ended up solving itself in the long term. And now...
Alright, yo, Like, you do know that like every country on the planet is having less kids right now, right, Doku?
Yeah, that is undeniable fact.
Okay, good, good, good. Like, yo, you wouldn't believe how many times I have conversations with people, and they're like, "Oh man, what are you talking about? They're not having less kids right now." Blah blah blah. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, apparently, like y'all ain't paying attention to what the fuck's going on in the world. Like that's goddamn bananas to me. That like motherfuckers would even argue about some shit like that.
Well, I do know where people get those statistics from, and they look specifically at birth rates, but they don't look at the mortality rates of children below the age of 10.
Right.
Said that there is a reason that poorer areas of the world are having more kids. It's because more children are dying. So of course they are.
Well, not it's not just more children are living. That's the issue in third world countries, right? I mean,
Well,
then they were like say like 20 or 30 years ago, because like now they have like Bill Gates out there handing out medicine for malaria and all that type of shit. You know what I mean?
Well, and also you have to look at the population rates before the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was even a thing, and you have to look at how they were structured as societies. Where, yeah, even if you look at the United States, if you go back 100 years, you needed to have five, six, seven kids because, well, you needed that many hands on the farm to actually do the work. Well, guess what? We had this wonderful thing called the combustion engine, the fucking combine. Like, you don't need as many hands in the field. You don't need as many people to actually produce the same type of goods and resources to sustain a society that you need today. That's technological progression. So of course, you're going to see population go down. It's not necessarily a result of we're trying to cull the population and turn the fucking frogs gay, and, and shit like that. It's to be blunt, you just don't need as many people. So
Well,
people are
it's
gonna
not
have
just
less and
that.
less children.
It's not just that. It's also urbanization, right? We're like
That's another big aspect.
right, because like the places that are the most urbanized in the world are the ones with the lowest population, lowest fertility rates, right? Because basically, like having a kid in a city is like having a Saint Bernard. It's a fucking luxury item. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
that's
it definitely, and especially when you look at the cost of living compared to rural areas and third world countries compared to first world urban areas. Yeah, it's a lot more expensive. Like if you're gonna sit there and live in Los Angeles or New York, and you want a kid and you want to have a decent life, provide a decent upbringing for them, compared to flyover country in America, or God forbid some sort of other third world country, and throw a dart at the dartboard.
like no, no. I mean, like in general, urbanization across the world's causing this. Like places like Taiwan, Japan, fucking South Korea, fucking like Beijing and things like this. Like these population rates are fucking obscenely low. Like South Korea is the lowest in the world right now. Like point fucking like 6 kids per woman, right? So like, I mean, and it's mostly because of the fact that they packed everybody inside of these cities. And when you're on a farm, kids are farm equipment. You know what I mean? When you move into a city, they're a Saint Bernard. I mean, like human beings required a certain amount of space, like any other animal, to be able to fucking like, like grow. You know what I mean? Like if you kept a horse inside of a 1-bedroom apartment in Manhattan, everybody in the world would look at that and go, man, that's fucking abuse. You know what I mean? Like you're abusing that fucking animal. You're not giving it the room it needs to be able to like survive. And it's the same thing with a fucking kid. So like we're actually literally like having less kids because like human beings require a certain amount of space, and nobody wants to have that conversation because everybody wants to be close to industrial fucking, industrial jobs or office jobs or whatever the fuck it is. So they can be right there at their fucking job and they're working shit. But we got like another like 22 minutes of this fucking video.
Oh yeah, just to touch on your point real quick.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
you're 100% correct on that, because again, when you're having a kid in an urban area, you don't need a kid to go, plow the fields and till shit up. Like, no, hey, I have Johnny go to school. It, I don't need Johnny 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 just to take care of the fucking cows. Like, it's just the way shit works. Like, and so in urbanized areas, yeah, you're not gonna see people having the same type of birth rates. It it's been proven by more people who are, better versed in the subject than I am, but it is a consistent metric. But that's enough of that.
I feel you. Let's keep rocking.
we're going to actually see global population decline over the next couple decades. The predictions that do work, and we'll reference a couple of these across the video, were those that correctly teased out a long-term trend, as in one lasting in centuries rather than a single generation, and understood its broader significance across the whole of society. An easy example of this from the 20th century was John Brunner, a sci-fi writer from the 1960s who wrote about a 2010s America run by its first black president, named Abomi, in which the Soviet Union had collapsed and was replaced by China as America's main rival in a new Cold War. At the same time, homosexuality has been normalized and gay marriage legalized. Random acts of violence like school shootings take place, people use video conferences and headphones, prices have risen sixfold since the 1960s, as inflation's gotten way worse. A wave of terrorism takes place, short-term hookups often replace marriage and long-term relationships, marginalization of tobacco while marijuana's been legalized in a lot of spots, rising real estate prices, and a global population of 8 billion. If you couldn't tell, all of that really happened. With all of that going on, we could...
Yo, that guy's a goddamn time traveler.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you couldn't throw a dart at a dartboard and hit a bullseye just as good as that was. 'Cause that was that was spot on. I mean, I would like to try to pick something out and say, oh well, no, you're wrong because of this, this, and this. I can't really find an area that's wrong.
Yo, that nigga was a time traveler. Let's keep it all the way 100. Like legit, like I gotta read that fucking book. You know what I'm saying? Like yo, and find out what the fuck else is going on in that fucking book.
If he's not a time traveler, then it's prophetic. I don't know what it is, but he was right. 100%. Yeah, you called it.
Yeah, that dude can see the fucking future. Let's keep rocking.
Start with the assumption that John Brunner's a time traveler, which honestly I'd consider reasonable, but realistically, he teased out two trends across the 20th century really well, and I don't even know if he did this on a conscious level, but those two trends were population growth, which increases competition, and decline in traditional religion. If you want more explanation, here's a video I made talking about this. The predictive trends of the 20th century were: number one, the spread of the Industrial Revolution and thus political power away from Britain and France to other larger regions in the West. Number two, the decline in traditional religions and their replacement by humanist philosophies like liberalism.
All right, let me read some of this. Humanism's beliefs that the ends justify the means killed tens of millions as regimes try to bring in utopia by editing humanity. Number two, liberalism's philosophic dependence upon Christianity made it less arrogant, and so it made less stupid decisions and remained the last man standing. Sexism, class division, and the like were lessened. And four, man, when forced to use himself as the arbiter, faced a dark age of art, philosophy, and the like due to solipsism. Just wanted to read that out, you know, because I think he typed it. I don't know who the fuck did, to be honest with you, but if he did, I wanted to give him, you know what I'm saying, some fucking credit for his mentalities.
Liberalism, communism, fascism, etc. 3. Waves of population growth starting the...
All right, let's do this one too. The effects of waves of population growth start in the wealthiest countries and ending in the poorest. The youth bulge in Britain and France around 1900 resulted in colonialism in Africa and Asia. The one in Central and Eastern Europe from 1910 to 1940 caused the world wars. The one in Asia from 1930 to 1990 allowed the Asian tiger economics. For the third world population explosion from the second half of the century was mostly eaten up by the Green Revolution, but created disastrous wars in Islam and Central Africa. 5, America's most steady and sustained population growth across the country allowed its meteoric rise. All right, here we go.
The century in the wealthiest countries and ending in the poorest. And 4, total war subsuming larger nations into mega empires.
Do this one too. The world started with 8 or so great powers and ended with 1. Countries with smaller industry and populations were crushed due to the decline of competition between European countries. Their largely expensive colonial empires that existed as a side effect were abandoned. 3. MAD tied the superpowers' hands behind their back. Allowing small, weak countries like the Comoros and Papua New Guinea to exist. I'm assuming MAD is, I don't know. A mutual assured destruction. There we go.
Empires, and finally reaching mutually assured destruction. You could have predicted the events in the 20th century from these points. In this video, just as I have 4 points of the 20th century, I've tried my best and I have 4 guesses for what I think the long-term trajectories of the 21st century are going to be. They're probably not what you think, and I'm intrigued to see what your collective reactions in the comments are. Before we start, I have said this before and I'm going to say it again. My job here is basically betting against God, and so the chances of this actually turning out correctly are pretty low. But this is my honest attempt, and let's see what happens, and let's work from there. Number 1, greater wealth. Much as people in the first world often like to flagellate themselves at oppressing the third world and starving children in Africa, things are going pretty well in the third world. The last 40 years have been the era of the greatest economic growth ever in world history. Nearly 2 billion people, mostly in Asia, but also in Eastern Europe and Latin America, have been lifted out of poverty since the end of the Cold War. If you want evidence that communism works worse than capitalism, here it is, screaming at you. You see loads of this in China. Look at the city of Shenzhen, for example. It was a fishing village 30 years ago, and now it's this. Similarly, this whole side of the river in Shanghai was literally a field 40 years ago. There are 800 million hungry people in the world and 2 billion obese, many of them in the third world. The only places where people legitimately starve are those in countries where their governments want them to for political reasons, like Yemen or South Sudan.
All right. So, bro, you hear all that, man?
Yep.
Yeah, I have a theory I've been working on, right? That I think capitalism is going to disappear here soon, right? And it's because of the fact that like demographics is going to make it impossible to continue fucking goddamn capitalism. Like when you don't have a continuation of population growth to be able to continue to have like exponential demand, capitalism no longer works because you don't have the investment to be able to have the capital to fucking put into things. If you don't have more people demanding goods, like if you don't have long-term growth, why would you put your money into like investing in anything?
I see where you're coming from. I don't fully agree with you on that one simply because capitalism will still work as long as there is as long as there is a buyer and a seller. But in in the iteration that we think it is, or more specifically the way we view it, which is essentially to this day we still view it as mid to late 1800s capitalism, that's not going to exist because it's not sustainable, and it hasn't existed for at least 7 or 8 decades. And I'm being very generous by saying that. What we have right now is more akin to, you could you could call it socialism, but it's really not. I'm not going to get into the nuances of why it's technically not socialism. It would bore the audience. But what we have right now is essentially a very regulated capitalistic market. But what you have to realize, and what people don't bring up, is you're looking at a globalized market where not every free market capitalistic structure is the same. Not every government regulates itself the same way. And labor conditions, natural conditions, those aren't the same either. There's a reason that you could look at China right now as they stand today, despite being a quote, quote, communist regime. China's actually more capitalist than the United States actually is. And I have several good reasons for saying that. Particularly, the biggest one is that China actually focuses on production and selling its goods to the rest of the world, while at the same time not regulating itself to the same degree that its customers do, specifically other nations. China is actually more of a capitalist state than the United States is, than Europe is, and United States and Europe are actually moving closer towards a socialist communist structure, even if you want to say that's only a social safety net, the Norwegian, the Scandinavian model. But it doesn't change the facts of how the economy is structured. It, to be blunt, you want to look at the most capitalist countries on the entire planet right now? Look at Turkey. Look at Vietnam. They're far more capitalist than Britain or the United States.
Okay, I mean, I agree with you right? But here's the problem with the whole principles that I have right now, right? So the mentality is this: everything we have in every model in every aspect of our society and economy is based on growth, right? What happens when that growth stops?
That is another issue because that delves into a big problem, and this does involve the downfall of what I would call Western capitalism. And this started when the global economic structure really started to take hold, post World War II specifically, but it was happening before that. So, really, what happened is our economic structure shifted from being a producer consumer economy that was relatively contained to being almost exclusively a consumer and export economy. And look at what the United States does. Just looking at the US, what do we do? I mean, we export movies, we export culture, we have large corporations that are pulled up in the United States, like we have McDonald's, we have Amazon. What do we actually produce here in the United States? And then look at what we consume. It, we export almost everything. Eh, we're a global power for that reason. That's the reason we're so influential. But the one thing we don't do is we don't consume what we produce domestically. We consume what's produced offshore in foreign countries,
Okay,
even if it's done by
I'd
well,
have to slow you down on that, right? Because if you think about it, so our trade with China, right? For instance, you know what I'm saying? It's like we have like something like a $600 billion surplus with China, right? The issue
that's
is
being
that
generous.
well, the issue is that you have the problem of where you got you have this. Sorry, man, my kid just woke up. You had this issue of where in having that $800 billion, you know what I'm saying, budget or that trade budget or trade, you know what I'm saying, deficit.
Deficit.
There we go. All right. You have the problem of like where like the vast majority of what we do produce, we do consume, right? Like we are the least involved economy in the world when it comes to exports, right? Like our GDP, like literally, like the only country in the world that's less involved than we are with exports is Burkina Faso. We do consume the majority of what we actually, you know what I'm saying, like manufacture and create here. Now, granted, you know what I'm saying, like movies and things of this nature, and saying they make a lot of money over in China or whatever, but like we're a service sector economy. So like what we do is like say we'll manufacture, we'll design a lot of high end stuff, and we'll send it elsewhere to be manufactured. But we still manufacture a lot of goods. Like for instance, the largest Japanese plants for manufacturing in the world aren't in Japan. They're in they're in Kentucky, right?
On that's a good point, but I have to point something else
Go ahead.
out to you, Pnoid. When it comes to a lot of the inputs that are required for the goods that we consume and that we produce here in the United States, we still require base level inputs. A good example right now is when you look at the semiconductor industry. A, do we produce a lot of cars in the United States, Mexico, Canada? Yeah, we do. But even those industries have essentially been brought to a standstill compared to what they were 2 years ago, simply because the semiconductors that they require are being built in places like China, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam,
Well, it's
and
Taiwan.
they can't get them.
Taiwan's the ones that are
Taiwan,
fucking us up right now for the cars. It's
Taiwan's a
Taiwan.
big one, but China is actually another big one as
No,
well.
it's not Taiwan. China makes low end garbage.
Oh no, dude, trust me. If you go and look at the semiconductors that AMD, Nvidia, Microsoft, and Intel need, the majority of their plants that get the semiconductors they need for those motherboards, those chips, those are produced in China. And it's the same cities that are actually going through rolling blackouts right now.
Well, all right. So here's the thing. So like Apple, for instance, is pretty much all invested in China, right? They're one of the only companies in the country that didn't start like bringing stuff back from there. Everybody else has. But other than that, you know what I'm saying? Like the VAT, like almost all of the fucking semiconductors that were missing for like the high end shit comes out of Taiwan, right? And comes out of Japan. And it's all designed in Germany and America. Right. And the stuff that we're missing out of places like fucking China is like motherboards. They're not semiconductors. They're fucking like motherboards, or you know what I mean, like just fucking regular green boards and circuit boards and things of this nature. Right. They don't manufacture high end fucking, you know what I mean, chips that go into like say guided missiles or fucking cars for like the fucking components for the computer that runs like your all wheel drive system and shit. That's really, really high end,
And most of that comes out of groups more like Lockheed, BAE Systems, things like that. I mean, sometimes Intel or AMD. But the issue that I'm pointing out is that even the low end stuff is far more prevalent. And again, a lot of that is produced in areas like China and Vietnam, and it does slow down. It does slow down the economic consumer trail simply because the high end stuff, no biggie. I live 30 minutes away from a massive BAE plant that produces semiconductors. It's not gonna BAE, Lockheed Martin. They're not worried about a slowdown in China. But when it comes to Ford just needs some random like $5 chip to throw into the next Explorer so they can throw it on the lot and sell it to someone. That's who it's really hurting. It's that mass produced, really cheap, but really basic stuff. And people often overlook that. But honestly, that really cheap basic stuff is what keeps stuff moving. I mean, big box stores are successful for a reason.
well, yeah, but it's not the low end shit that's missing for like auto manufacturing, right? That's not what's holding that up. What's holding that up is the fact that like we're like it takes 9 months to change over from one chip to the next, right? And that is what's actually holding up, you know what I mean, the fucking demand for like the fucking automobile industry and shit, because like they did something, they made somebody ordered a fuck ton of fucking pieces for something and they had to run all that out and now they're running out something else. You know what I mean, they're changed back over, but it takes like 9 months for the whole changeover because like it's something like they have to like stand here and make the chips and put the boards in, and then they have to fucking like grow the crystalline on top of it or some shit like that, and then they have to etch it out, and then like it's fucking all like it's a fucking crazy process, but it's like all self-contained, all clean room shit. And this is why China can't do it, because China don't have the precision technology to be able to make these type of like super high end things. But anyway, yo, look again. You know what I'm saying, we're back to like fucking we're at 6:49. Let's keep rocking on this motherfucker. You know what I mean?
All right.
Let's keep
Yeah.
like the whole point of this conversation was to say like yo, the demand, like yo, the whole purpose, the whole point of capitalism is that like you're investing for future earnings. That's the point of capitalism. Capital invests for certain earnings to earn more capital. That's the point of it, right? And if you don't have future earnings because you have a shrinking population, capitalism stops working. That's my mental. Can you argue that point?
If technology can advance to the point where you can do more work than it would take for a human being to do, mm, it's not an easy question to answer. Normally, I would agree with you, but there are certain sectors of the economy where you can be more productive than if you were just relying on human input and human labor.
Well, but
But
yo, again,
those still
it's not about human labor, son. Yo, it's about demand.
it is about demand, but even with demand, you still have to be able to produce at cost, and that's what it boils down to. Is if your cost to produce exceeds what you can sell it for, which would be directly related to demand, that's one thing. There are a few industries that can get by with having less human labor and more automation or whatever else is going to replace human labor. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, if population is going down, it, things are going to get more expensive. That's
No,
just the way it
I, I
works.
mean, I mean, like, yo, legitimately, if population goes down, okay, and we're not talking like a small amount. We're talking about the year 2100. There's going to be 50% less Chinese people. We're talking half the population, right? What the fuck do you do at that point or
Oh, well,
during that process?
at that point in time, you're already kind of screwed because even if let's just say the population takes a 20% haircut, you're not going to have enough people to even maintain the technology that would replace your standard manual labor, let alone you also just cut down 20% of your potential consumer base.
Here's the problem. This is the problem. I'm talking consumer base, right? When you're talking about Europe is at a terminal demography, like they cannot turn it around. And all the Asian countries that have been on a growth pattern, like Korea, Japan, Malaysia, Taiwan, all these places that are higher end, you're talking about they're down at like 1 kid per woman too, right? And then you start looking at the U.S. and like fucking like all these countries like Mexico, Canada, fucking whatever, they're down too. And then you look at the Middle East and you go, oh fuck, they're down too. You're left with dirt poor fucking sub-Saharan Africans at that point, and that's it.
Oh, and the thing is, they won't be able to afford anything fancy. Like,
there we go. So what the fuck?
Yeah, they're not buying $1,000 iPhones.
What do you do?
Well,
can you have investment if you're in a shrinking market? Who's gonna invest?
You can. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but yes, you can.
For 20 years? What if it shrinks for 20 years?
And the thing is, you can, and the only way you can do it, and this is something I warn against, I've been warning against it for a long ass time, you can continuously inflate, but the bubble's going to pop eventually. And when it does...
20 years, and you know you're not going to have returns because that's what the demographics tell you. The fuck do you do?
Well, again, it's... You don't have a choice. The bubble will pop. Now...
The baby boomers are leaving. They're gone.
And this is the thing. When does the bubble pop? I don't know. It could be tomorrow. It could be 10 years from now. I'm not going to speculate.
It's going to be in the next 10 years.
Well, I'm not going to speculate on when the bubble pops, but with the direction we're going, when you look at how the financial markets are treated, especially with modern monetary theory and fiat currency, the way that production is essentially inflated artificially, and you look at global population, global demand, supply and demand charts, when you look at all of these things, there are two options. You either constantly inflate it, which, well, technically you can do. If we have a fiat currency system, you can do that. And you can kick the can down the road. Or you can increase interest rates and let the bubble deflate slowly. Regardless of what option you take, that bubble is going to deflate one way or another. Now, does it go pop like a cartoon, bubblegum bubble? Could happen. It very easily could happen. Or does it just slowly come back down and reach a real price, a realistic price, and things sort of correct themselves, and then you can start step laddering up?
No, this is the problem. You can't step ladder up.
Not until it collapses.
No. I mean, again, if the market in general for consumer goods is shrinking, how do you fucking step ladder up?
It has to collapse first. You can step ladder up once it hits a bottom.
No, there is no bottom, is what I'm saying.
No, there is a bottom because there will be demand. The bigger question is, where is the bottom? Ask anybody who is well versed in finance. They'll tell you how high things can go. Ask them where the bottom is. Nobody has an answer for you. Why? Because the bottom, if you just look at how things are set up, how our economy is set up, how our fiscal system is set up, the bottom only has one answer. It's zero. That's the bottom. Now, the problem is, if things go to zero, how do you pay back your debt when your currency is worth nothing?
It's what I'm saying. It's going to have to collapse. This is my problem with, this mentality. So, all right, let's keep rocking on this video, though. We're going to keep banging. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got off on a tangent.
It's so nice to go to a place like Mexico and see lots of obese people where a generation or so ago you'd see far more thin. I do think the third world will see a massive crisis in the decades to come, mostly due to a combination of globalization and their political and social structures not being able to maintain the massive population and economic growth they've seen in the past few decades. Sort of like why World War I happened in Europe, but I don't think that'll be able to hold them back for the whole century. The sources of greater wealth being capitalism and technological progress are both stable. Everyone serious has realized that capitalism's the best economic system, and anyone who hasn't will be crushed by those who have. Also, the technological revolutions that are almost certainly about to happen in things like manufacturing ability, biotech, which is immense potential of agriculture and disease, and green energy will benefit the third world. I once read a prediction saying that the average Bangladeshi at the end of the century will be as wealthy as the average Dutchman today, and I don't know if that's true, but it's definitely within the realm of possibility. These events will also be pronounced in the first world, where advances in productivity and technology will probably result in your descendants living lives like those of the pre-industrial aristocracy. People will work far less hours and will spend the rest of the time on war, sport, art, politics, or working more hours to get more money. Remember,
Now, I don't disagree with that point, and I'm gonna tell you why. I think as the population shrinks, you're gonna end up having housing become much more affordable.
I don't disagree. We're already starting to see a housing inflation,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people are talking about, oh, there's not enough housing to go around to house the people. That's not actually true. What is true is there's not enough quote unaffordable housing for everyone who wants to actually own a house. Now, if you want to go on Section 8 or if you want to rent, no, there's actually plenty of housing. There's a lot of landlords that would beg someone to rent their property. It and like you said, it's because of decreasing population. The problem is the fact that things are inflated to the point where it's actually unaffordable. So the majority of people are actually going on to Section 8 housing or they're moving on to DACA programs, things like that, and they're not involved in the housing market as far as the free market or the direct market is concerned. But housing isn't the issue. The issue is the fact that the market, the government has essentially taken the role of being a market maker. And because of that, the free market has been disrupted. And we're starting to see the negative ramifications of that. It Is it communism? No, it's not. Anybody that tells you that, they're buzzwording you, they're giving you clickbait. It's bullshit. We're not on communism. Is it socialist? Maybe, kinda, depending on how you argue it. You might have an argument there. But really, what it boils down to is the free market has been inflated to such a degree that it's become unaffordable for anyone who doesn't want to engage in government programs. And the government, by design, is inefficient. And so the government involvement in the free market has expanded, while the free market itself has neither expanded or contracted, but it's become more expensive. And this is where we are today, at least in the United States. And I don't know where we go from here, but I do
Yo,
believe it's going to
yo,
be a collapse.
I put out a video like a day or so ago about like how the suburbs are a good thing, right? And you know, I mean, because like it's allowed our birth rate to remain like remotely stable as compared to everybody the fuck else. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to like urbanization and shit, and with the amount of feminism we've had, and you know, I mean, divorce and all these type of things, the destruction of the family, so like the suburban population has allowed us to continue to, you know, what I mean, like be remotely demographically fucking stable. And one of the things I found while I was doing research for this video, did you know the government doesn't know what a suburb is?
I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me.
You know, they have no definition.
it it shouldn't surprise me, but
Yo, they're
what
so
the
bad.
hell?
Yo, they're so bad at their fucking jobs. Legit, they're so bad at their fucking jobs. Like, yo, legit. Like, I was sitting there and I was like going through like all these fucking papers from, you know what I'm saying, like the housing and urban development, all these motherfuckers, like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, fucking, there was a bunch of shit. Like, I went through all this JSTOR, everything, right? They have no idea how many people live in suburbia because they don't know what suburbia is.
I I wish I had something to say to that, but to be honest, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all.
Yo, the government is fucking trash. Yo, legit. Let's keep rocking.
The first world countries are democracies, and in the US's case, a very well-armed one. And so, dystopian systems in which a tiny elite controls factories and gives welfare scraps to the population politically won't work out because of either revolution or voting out the government. As people become wealthier and the cost of bottom-tier goods collapses due to automation, people, being the status-seeking creatures they are, will buy luxury goods which will become a larger and larger percentage of the economy.
Yo, man, this is what I'm talking about. Like, yo, like automation, if it makes stuff super cheap, like who the fuck is gonna invest in these companies? Who's gonna own the shares if it's just gonna be cheaper and cheaper?
But and that actually is a good point because again, the iPhone might be $1,000 now, but guess what? It so I'm gonna be what's the word? Pedantic, maybe.
Okay, go
Uh,
ahead.
so I can sell you. Let's say there's 1,000 people right now,
Right, right.
and I can sell you an iPhone at $1,000. But if automation becomes a thing, well, obviously wages are going to go down. It's cheaper to use automation. Well, a degree or a certain amount of those people who are working just manual labor, they're going to have to go get a higher education and they're going to have to learn how to do maintenance or produce the machines that are going to be producing the iPhones that they were producing by hand. Well, that removes people from the labor pool. So, what happens to those people who can't pass those sort of technical skills? Because let's be blunt, not everybody is going to be cut out for that type of job.
Half of the
Well,
population is below 100 IQ.
exactly. So the people who don't know how to just maintain a fucking robot in a factory building iPhones, well, guess what? They're going to be out of a job. So one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to go work on the farm, but oh, by the way, we can't because, well, you know how that goes. A different conversation. Or they're going to have to be reliant upon government or some sort of subsidy. It At the end of the day, what
Wait,
ends up happening is you have less people working. You're still producing 1,000 iPhones for 1,000 people, but out of those 1,000 people, rather than every single one of them being able to afford it, only 800 of them can. That's a 20% reduction.
and
It
then
doesn't
and then
sound like a lot.
and then take off another 20% for demographic decline.
And that's the thing. It doesn't sound like a lot where only 20% can afford that brand new iPhone. Here's the thing, that 20%, they also have no upward mobility in society. That 20% quickly becomes 25, then it goes to 30, then it goes to 40, until it gets to the point where even the people who know how to work these machines, guess what? They're also outdated. Or if we really take it to the extreme, you have machines that repair the machines. It, are you the one programming it? Or are you just the maintenance worker? Look at the auto industry. It's a perfect
I
fucking
mean,
example.
at some point, we're gonna have a conversation about mercantilism.
It's just the way things are. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like to admit it, but this is the way things go with automation. It
You're again like, yo, it's better that people work. Right, like at a certain point there's a tipping scale for productivity. I mean, there's a certain level where like, yo, productivity will end up out producing your fucking people's ability to fucking keep jobs, and it's going to destabilize your fucking society, and you're just going to end up collapsing the whole thing. So you end up having to have a conversation about mercantilism. Like, it's just fact of life.
somebody made a really good argument. I don't fully agree with it, but I think it's a really good point.
Okay.
It's very simple. I don't have to feed a robot.
I feel you, but then, like, you know what I'm saying, what's the point of the robot if you don't have any people?
Again, I only need 2 people instead of 10. I don't have to feed the robot. The only thing I need to do is to feed the person who fixes the robot, and then I need to feed the person. Hit a certain point of what's the word I'm looking for?
Automation. Yeah, automation.
Automation. Thank you. Once you hit a certain point of automation, I only need people to fill very specific roles. But outside of that, it I don't really need anything else. I don't even necessarily need the farmer. The robot can do it for me. I mean, there does come a point in time where, yes, human beings, if technology progresses the way that we're progressing now, there will come a point in time where manual labor, human beings do become obsolete. It it will happen.
Yeah, but the whole point of society and our government and everything that's involved is to have like it's supposed to serve people. Right? Like
And
the market and the economy is supposed to serve the people, and if it doesn't, then it's time to get rid of it. And
and
that's the real bitch.
Well, and that's the dangerous part about things is yes, is our economy going to be more productive? Are we going to be more successful? Of course. Hey, just look at Henry Ford and the production line. Hey, look at not even cars. Henry Ford originally started with tractors. Hey, look at how much more successful and how much more productive just by using a steam powered tractor was. It completely revolutionized the agricultural industry. A great technological advancement. But what did it do for society, and more specifically, what did about the idea of work and what it meant to you and how it changed people psychologically? That's what I think a lot of us don't look at because psychologically, if I have to take off my shirt and go till the field and plant seeds and do it every day, not just to sell, you know, grain and fruit at market, but just to eat, that instills a certain type of value in you. It instills a certain type of mindset. Like, I'm not just doing this for my own survival, but I'm doing it for the survival of my family, my neighbors, my town. It, but then you hand me a tractor and I can just do this no problem. It changes the way people look at the world. And I think long term, we're actually starting to see the negative side effects of that. But that's my 2 cents.
I don't think you're wrong about that, right? And you know what I'm saying? Like we've had this conversation about like Vox Populi, Vox Dei, Luxus Populi, Suprema Lex, and fucking Salus Populi. You know what I mean? Fucking Suprema Lex, right? Which is basically, fucking the voice of people or the voice of God. You know what I mean? The luxury of the people is the supreme law, and then the health of the people is the same law. And that currently we're working on a utilitarian model, which is, you know what I'm saying, like the Luxus Populi Suprema Lex, which is the utilitarian ideology. And we're not having any conversation about the health of your society, the health of your people, the health of your families, the health of your communities, the health of anybody involved. We're just standing here having a conversation about, whether or not it's positive, for the economy about what's happening. But once the economy stops serving the people, once your government, once like the people are now at the level where like they're screaming and begging for fucking help. Like if you look at like an election map for like the past 30 years and just watch fucking Michigan, Wisconsin, PA, and Ohio flash back and forth red and blue, right? You can tell like that's a goddamn telltale sign. Like our society is in disarray. There's some fucking major problems going on, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody's having any of these conversations. No one's having any of these motherfucking, like nobody's going, hey, maybe we should think about what we're doing to our fucking people. And when you have entire generations of human beings who are being left behind by a system, you can't keep making the argument of going, well, it's helping the third world and, like we're fucking better off because we have iPhones and computers. And you go, yeah, but like, my dad had a house at my age, you know what I mean? And my dad had a family at my age and my dad had fucking 2 cars at my age. And like, you know what I mean? Like my dad and my grandpa are out here with their classic automobiles that they paid, $2,000 for when they were making, 15, 20 or 30 grand a year. And we're not talking about this. Right? We're not having these conversations. And when you stand here and you look at like what's coming up in our system as a whole, and we're coming up and like going, well, my issue comes down to, all right, all I got to do is feed me and the guy who fucking, maintains the robot. I don't think that's true, right? Because ultimately, you always have this question of like, what happens if you have 10 people, you're making iPhones for, 2 of them die, right? Because they got old. And then you have, like 2 more of them who were eliminated because of automation. And, now you're selling fucking 60% of what you used to sell. Who's going to invest in that fucking company long term if another 1 or 2 of them are going to die from old age?
I think that's the reason that we constantly inject money into the system to keep it constantly inflating. But you do bring up a good point because, and this is not necessarily financially related. I do wonder, at what point in time do we look at our interactions with not just each other as human beings, but with the environment around us, and come to the conclusion that despite despite how productive we could be, or despite how uh, ingenuitive, how advanced, say, what type of technology we can produce, at what point in time do we look at things and go, "This is great. Like, I could go to Mars. I can own a holographic television. I could have all this amazing, cartoon level technology." But has it benefited society as a whole? And when I say that, I mean, has it benefited humanity? Like the way we interact with each other, the way we interact with our environments.
Look, here's how I put it. Has it made us better human animals?
Exactly. Like, has this actually helped us, or has it made it easier for us to be pieces of shit? To be honest, because I think we're heading in the direction where it's honestly making it easy for us to be crappy. Like, just I don't think it's helping us as people. I think it's making it easier for us to be lazy.
That's kind of my mental, right? And not only that, like I think in general, like we're becoming more and more disconnected from, like the dirt that we walk on. Like, the trees that
How
are
many
around us.
people actually go out and just, even if it's for shits and giggles, how many people do you know actually go out and just, I'm just gonna plant like 2 or 3 blueberry bushes. I'm gonna plant a grapevine. I'm gonna tend to it. I'm gonna water it. Even if maybe it's just flowers. Like, maybe I just want a nice flower garden. How many people actually do that?
How many
Versus
like
how many people hire someone to do it for them?
how many people, you know what I'm saying, like have friends?
It's another damn good question.
Like this
Eh,
is what I'm saying. Like, yo, societally, like we're becoming better. I think we're gonna like, yeah, we're gonna like, fuck it, we're gonna cut this off in like 8 minutes because my fucking computer keeps fucking trying to crash, right? But like, like we're not gonna finish this fucking video today. Like, but it's all right, I think this is a great conversation, right? And the mental, the mental that I think this is making us worse human animals, right? And my boy says what they're doing is they're stealing from the commons, right? Like your cultural commons, your fucking your community commons, your fucking your human commons, right? And I like that mentality. My boy Smoothies came up with that, and I think they've robbed us of our humanity and our souls, like everything that makes us, like what makes a human being great, right? Isn't, you know what I'm saying? It's like it doesn't, a person isn't great just because like, they're able to like, you know, relate to somebody about like a cartoon show or a TV or, because like you both eat Kraft macaroni and cheese. What makes a human being great, what makes human beings as a whole great creatures is, their cultural diversity, their, they're fucking, their individual motherfucking like beauty as people. And I think that that's been like hardwired out of us to make us like able to be like have more good sold to us. You know what I'm saying?
well, that's actually a really good point. Ironically enough, I'm actually having to take a certification class just for leadership skills, because I have to do it according to my job.
Right.
But one of the things they talk about is communication is important. And when it comes to communication, what you have to realize about people is that human beings are not machines. We don't have a mentality. We act emotionally, and it's not natural for human beings to look at things from a perspective that is removed from that emotional reaction. Now, what makes human beings extremely successful, extremely dangerous, extremely complicated is that no one person is going to act or react to the same thing the same way. I could approach 20 different people and ask them the same question, and I'm going to get 20 different answers. And even if I get the same answer, it's going to mean something different because everybody has a unique idea. They already have something in their head, they already have something in their mind, and they're going to look at me and somebody's always going to see something different even if my shirt's the same, my suit's the same, my shoes are the same. They're going to have their idea. They are a unique individual, and when you recognize that, that is an excellent strength. That is something you can utilize to your benefit. But if you try to force people into this box, if you try to say like, no, you're A, you're B, you're C, and you're D, not only do you remove people's individuality and what makes them strong it as individuals, something that people claim they're for, but they actually aren't. But that aside, when you try to force people into boxes and force them to act as a monolith, something systemic or whatever label you want to put on it, not only does it prevent people from being successful, it actually creates animosity. Even if they don't realize it in their conscious brain, they'll realize it in their subconscious brain, and it will cause them to lash out and be destructive. And the way I see society evolving right now, for all of its proverbial tolerance and inclusion, is a society that is destructive and it's falling down by nothing else more than its own design because it refuses to acknowledge the individuality and strength of people who are nothing more than just, again, individuals. You can't force
it's
people
not it's not it's
into
not
those
just that.
boxes.
It's not just that. Like you've robbed motherfuckers of their heritage. You've robbed people of
Well,
their culture. You know what
well,
I
and
mean? Like, and you're
that's
trying
an
to.
extension. That's an extension
Well,
of it.
it's not like because like in like I have to push back against this individuality thing because like like there's shared experiences and shared wisdom and shared knowledge in individuals who live in the same geography or come from the same geography, right? And taking that away from individuals, taking away like their sense of group, you know what I'm saying? Because we're herd animals in the end of the day. Taking that away from people is dangerous. You know what I'm saying? And it destroys them as people because like, say like your family's from, I don't know, like fucking Poland or Germany or fucking Sweden or Czechoslovakia, whatever, right? And you moved into a town that has a whole bunch of Polish and Swedish and Czechoslovakian motherfuckers, right? And then in 2 generations down the road, like all of y'all are just, you know what I'm saying, like Americans who eat, mac and cheese and hot dogs. Like that's terrible for you. You know what I mean? Because like you change your diet, you change your mannerisms, you change your heritage, and you're nothing more than a brain dead fucking consumer. And that's not positive either. You know what I'm saying? Because like, I was like, oh, I'm an individual. I don't want to be forced to stand here and act the way that my parents acted or my fucking grandparents acted or whatever. But like, it's not about that. It's about the fact that you get to. You know what I mean? Because people have died for this shit before. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's true. I'm not 100% disagreeing with you. What I am going to say is you could live in the same house, but I'm not living in the same bedroom. Or I could live in the next house over. Or I could live in the next town over. Or I could live in the next state over. Eh, Not everybody is the same, I get exactly what you're saying, and you're not wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you on that level. What I am trying to point out is that there is a certain societal structure, ideology, or mentality where if you are A, you are A, and A can never be B. Well, let me ask you a question. I happen to be of a certain skin color, but I live in this state and not this state. Am I the same as person who lives in state 1 versus state 2? The way that they approach people and the way that they think they should think and the way they should act is everyone who is condition A, regardless if in they're 1 or 2, always acts as condition A. And that is fundamentally dehumanizing to a fault, and it completely degrades our society. Uh, if let's say I'm white, am I supposed to be liberal? Am I supposed to be conservative? Am I black? Am I supposed to be liberal or conservative? I'm Native American? What box am I supposed to fit in? They don't view people as people. They don't view people as individuals, and we constantly are trying to push people into these boxes, not just politically, but also economically. And it's degrading our society to the point where I do not think it's sustainable. To, as Pasky would say, to
Well,
circle back around, I had to throw that one in there. If we continue to go down this, cookie cutter A, B, C, D, everybody fits into a box sort of mentality, our culture, not just our culture, our economy, and it, our society is going to collapse. It's not sustainable.
well,
It,
here's like I'm gonna tell you what a lot of this is coming from, right? A lot of this is coming from all these white chicks who got pregnant by black dudes, and now these like light skinned fucking kids, they hate the white part of themselves, right? Because they were taught to hate the white part of themselves because they don't feel like they're black enough. And because like like dark skinned motherfuckers look at light skinned motherfuckers like, what I mean, like, oh man, you bougie or whatever. And this is where a lot of this shit's coming from. Like it's a societal problem. This is what happens when you interbreed. You know what I mean? Like motherfuckers don't know. Like this has happened before. You know what I mean?
you do have a point,
I know.
and you have a point. I can't disagree with it because I've seen it myself where I've seen. I used to drink with a white dude who was married to a black chick, and they'd sit down, they'd talk to me, and they'd drink and be like, "Yeah, you have no idea how many people like come up to us and talk shit because I'm married to a black woman." It's like, why does anybody give a fuck? It's like, well, they give a fuck for whatever reason, but
This is
it
again, this
doesn't.
is what happens
But
when
it
you
doesn't.
interbreed, dude. Like legit, like and the thing is, like all right, your culture again. We got to circle back to culture. So if you live in flyover country, or if you live, you know what I'm saying, outside of like a coastal city, you shouldn't be trying to act like motherfuckers in a coastal city live, right? Because like the metropolitan individuals and the cosmopolitan people are different fundamentally than individuals in the horde lands in the middle of our country, different than motherfuckers in the Texas panhandle. They're different than people in the Appalachians. They're different than people in the Rockies. You know what I mean? Like they're different than the individuals who live up in the Great Lakes. It's not the same society. These are different people. It's a different culture altogether as a whole, right? And trying to act the same and treat them the same and having the same rules, and especially when you're talking on a level of millions of fucking people. You know what I mean? And this is the problem with our country as a whole right now is the fact that like we have 12 million people, 13 million people who live, or 14, 15 million, something live in Pennsylvania, right? The vast majority of rules are made by individuals who live around Philadelphia and fucking Pittsburgh, right? And instead of and then it's like fucking literally like, fucking 8 million people ruling over 7 million. That's fucking tyranny. You know what I'm saying? Like, the world is tearing itself apart because, like, it's two different places. It's a port city versus motherfuckers who live up in the goddamn mountains. You can't have this. You know what I mean?
Dude, you know where I live? I live in fucking Virginia, and it's like if it's not Richmond, Northern Virginia, or around Norfolk, the rest of the state doesn't fucking matter. Richmond and Northern Virginia pretty much decide the country. And for anybody that doesn't know that's listening, Northern Virginia is basically just a suburb of DC.
Yeah.
Look at Prince William, Fairfax, Arlington, Loudoun County. And they're basically just DC suburbs.
Yeah. But anyway, yo, look. It's been an hour and 4 minutes, and my fucking OBS keeps fucking freezing, so I'm gonna shut this bitch the fuck down. Yo, Doku, you know the deal, nigga. I love you. Thank you for coming through. Man, listen, Saturday, Sunday night, something like that, I'm gonna do a live stream. You interested?
Hey man, if I'm around, just shoot me a DM on Discord, let me know, and if I'm there, I'll definitely pop in and give my horrible bigoted opinion.
Man, listen, look, everything's bigoted at this point. It is what it is. Thank you, my brother. I'm gonna holla at you. All y'all like, share, and subscribe. Y'all know the motherfucking deal, man. Hit join the Discord. Hit the motherfucking links in the motherfucking description. Fucking support the channel. Yo, peace be like one, motherfuckers. Later.